Breaking news into SportsCenter, not unexpected, however. LeBron James has opted out of the final year of his contract with the Lakers that would have paid him over $51 million, a source told ESPN's Dave McMenamin, as now James looks to sign a new deal to stay in Los Angeles, where he spent the last 6 seasons, and now they have drafted his son.
Welcome to the madness that is NBA free agency season, or at least the lead up to it. And we already have Lakers news. The guard, D'Angelo Russell, plans to exercise his $18.7 million option. He's going to return to the Lakers next season. He was third on the team last year, 18 points per game. He had 18 games with 25 points or more, and 14 of them came after the first of the year. Also, Saturday is D-Day, or not D-Day, player options. LeBron headlines, obviously, this list. At the age of 39, he's coming off another All-NBA season, his 20th, which is the most all-time. If he opts in, he'll make more than $51 million, but let's also remember the Lakers did just draft Ronnie, a.k.a. LeBron's son. Also in L.A., but by way of the Clippers, Paul George. I mean, he shot 47% from the field and 41% on threes last season, both of them career highs. He also stayed healthy. He missed just 8 games. The Clippers can extend him up to 4 years for just north of $200 million. And then there are lots of questions remaining for the Warriors, from Klay Thompson to Chris Paul. Paul's deadline to make a guaranteed $30 million next year was supposed to be Friday. That has now been moved to Sunday, which gives everybody a little time to talk trade.
All right, Nicole, thank you very much. Woj is back. Let's just start with that report that Nicole just mentioned that you broke here on Chris Paul's contract guarantee being pushed back from Friday to Sunday. So according to your reporting, what's the reason for that shift?
It gives the Warriors 2 more days to see if there's a way they can include Chris Paul's contract in a trade. It's going to be difficult. If $30 million to take on his salary, maybe even as part of a bigger deal, that's a lot for any payroll. What is still a very likely scenario is that essentially they waive Chris Paul and he becomes a free agent and he would sign, elsewhere for much less than that. But they're not there yet. They've got 2 more days to see if they can find a trade involving Paul's contract.
Interesting. One of the very first things Mike Dunleavy Jr. did when he took over the Warriors last July was acquire Chris Paul. We'll wait to see what happens here this weekend. His teammate for now, Klay Thompson, what's your latest reporting there?
His future in Golden State is tenuous at best right now. There's not really been much communication with the Warriors. Klay Thompson, there's not been an offer yet. They've had the ability to make one here. They haven't. I think they're allowing Klay Thompson to go out into the marketplace and see what's there for him. And I think potentially what that's going to look like for Klay Thompson are possible sign and trade scenarios where teams can do a deal with Golden State. They could get an asset back and they could find a way to do a multi-year deal with Klay Thompson. And there are teams who have the salary cap space to sign Thompson. But I think the dominoes will start to fall in free agency, perhaps beginning with Paul George, and then players like Klay Thompson follow suit. But I think his future in Golden State, again, very tenuous.
Yeah, 13 years, 1 franchise. It's going to be a sensitive situation. You invoked Paul George. Let's go there. He's got a Saturday deadline to exercise his player option. It's north of $48 million. What are you hearing on that front?
Well, this is really where free agency starts, is with Paul George. He's got to make that decision by tomorrow. If he declines the option, becomes a free agent, he can still re-sign with the Clippers, could do a multi-year deal. I think the reason he has not re-upped with the Clippers yet is they've not been willing to go to 4 years on a deal. And I think there's a belief that the marketplace holds 4-year deals for Paul George. Certainly probably the last big contract of his career. And listen, the Clippers value Paul George. But again, this is a new day in the NBA with the salary cap, and I think they got Kawhi Leonard on a 3-year deal that was below max. I think they'd like to do the same with Paul George. He's certainly going to have a lot of options out there. Tomorrow we'll know more about what route he starts to take heading into free agency.
You mentioned it. The guy that runs the Clippers, Lawrence Frank, has been pretty frank. There are some CBA issues with them, and we'll have to see how it all transpires. Last thing, couple big names on the move already this week. You and Nicole talked about DeJounte Murray earlier in the program. Mikal Bridges, obviously that was a huge blockbuster midweek. What other player are teams keeping their eye on?
Lauri Markkanen in Utah, especially once Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn came off the board, went to the Knicks. Markkanen is another player on a team where teams are trying to get a sense of what direction the Jazz might want to go. The Jazz wanted to add players with Lauri Markkanen. They were a team that was in on Mikal Bridges. New York ultimately outbid them. But listen, I think in a perfect world, Utah wants to keep Lauri Markkanen. They could sign him to an extension later this summer, but teams are being aggressive in this marketplace. He is a significant, he's had a renaissance in his career with Will Hardy in Utah. And listen, I think it would take a great deal to pry him out of there. But Utah's got to listen, and there's no shortage of teams who have an interest in seeing just what it might take to get Markkanen out of Utah.
You mentioned a renaissance. His last 2 years of his 7-year career have been in Utah. They are not coincidentally the 2 best years by far of his NBA career. So he will be in demand, as will this man, all the way through.
Great news.
All right, safe to say it's been a busy week for the Atlanta Hawks. Top pick in the draft Wednesday. Friday, agreeing to send DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans. He's coming off a career-best scoring average. Never quite meshed, though, with Trae Young in the backcourt. So he knew something was likely to happen. Instead, he gets to team up with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram if the latter remains in New Orleans. This is, more than anything, tells you what kind of player Murray is. He made 3 go-ahead shots in the final 5 seconds of the fourth quarter in OT last season. That's big-time clutch performance, tied with Steph for the most in the NBA. That's amazing. This is incredible. That's great news for the Pels to get somebody like this. They were 0-22 last year, not a single win when trailing entering the fourth, and now a guy enters the roster that's come up big in the fourth and OT.
For context, this is why we have this man. We bring in our Adrian Wojnarowski. Look, how did this trade come together?
Nicole, this has been a conversation Atlanta and New Orleans has been having, really on and off for months. But for Atlanta, the Trae Young, DeJounte Murray partnership just never worked. 2 years of it. And simply it was easier to trade DeJounte Murray. There was more of a market with his contract and kind of where he is right now in this league. So for New Orleans, they see Murray as a player who could help them in fourth quarters, another offensive creator to go with C.J. McCollum, Zion Williamson. And I think for Atlanta, they were able to get a draft pick in 2025. They were out of that draft because of the Murray trade and what they gave up for San Antonio. This is one of the biggest drafts in years coming next year, and they are back in that draft with a pick.
So one of the things to, I think, also keep in mind in all of this is the fact that Brandon Ingram could very easily be going into the final year of his contract. So what are the dominoes that could potentially fall now?
Listen, Brandon Ingram, his agent, Jeff Schwartz, and the Pelicans, they'd like to get an extension done, but this is a new world right now with the salary cap, and the idea that they would be able to max out Brandon Ingram for a second time becomes difficult with the roster they have, the payroll they have. And so I think this is going to be a dance for a while. They've been open to looking at trades for Ingram. Their intent is to try to keep him, but I think there's still uncertainty right now about what Ingram's future is going to be in New Orleans.
Do not go far because we have many more things to discuss, including